January 8, 1989. British Midland Flight 92 prepares for takeoff from London's Heathrow Airport. The pilot, co-pilot and cabin crew ready the Boeing 737-400 for the 1-hour flight to Belfast. On board, 30-year-old passenger Noel Crimble settles in for the short flight.
I happened to be sitting across the wings on the right-hand side of the plane, and there was an empty seat beside me, and then another young lady sitting in the next seat.
118 passengers and 8 crew are aboard as the 737 takes off. The jet begins the climb to a cruising altitude. But as it reaches 28,000 feet, the passengers and crew feel a violent jolt. Noel sees a fire on the wing.
I could see the fire on my left-hand side. I could see the flames and the sparks emanating from the front.
Inside the cockpit, the crew smells smoke. Suspecting one of the engines is on fire, the captain immediately disengages the autopilot.
Which one is it? Summit, it's the right one. Okay, throttle back.
The pilot powers down the right engine. The thudding ceases. The fire appears to be extinguished.
BD-92 requesting ground assistance.
Rather than risk flying the 400 miles to Belfast on one engine, the pilot will divert to East Midlands Airport for an emergency landing. The Midlands Airport Fire Brigade is alerted. Lead firefighter Ian Beard and his squad stand by for instructions from ground control.
As the aircraft approached the airport, we could then see that parts of the burning wreckage were falling from the sky.
Could I have your attention?
From the cockpit, the pilot notifies the passengers that they must divert to Midlands. The cabin crew prepares for an emergency landing.
I had begun to talk to the girl sitting beside me. She had said directly that she had a premonition something was going to happen to this plane, and I tried to reassure her that everything would be okay.
Now, 3,000 feet away from the runway, the pilot increases power to level the aircraft for landing. But the engine loses power.
It's not going.
The co-pilot attempts to restart the right engine, but there is no time.
Prepare for crash landing. Prepare for crash landing.
Prepare for crash landing. It takes a few moments just to say, what does that mean?
The jet is now flying without power. The pilot struggles to hold the nose up. Traveling at over 120 miles per hour, the 737 bellies into the ground and slams into a steep roadside embankment.
We actually sat outside the station and saw it drop out from the sky. Silence fell over us when we realised the horror of what had happened.
The airport fire brigade rushes to the crash site. Ian and the crew can see that the jet has just missed the M1, one of Britain's busiest highways.
A lot of people who'd been travelling on the motorway had come to the scene and were trying to get in and help us, but at the same time there seemed to be an eerie silence.
The fire crews can see that the jet is perched up on the steep embankment. They fear the jet's fuel could catch fire, and they know if anyone is still alive, they must get them out quickly. A Boeing 737 passenger jet has just crashed in the English countryside. The airliner fell just 800 yards short of the East Midlands Airport runway. Motorists from a nearby highway are struggling to help pull some passengers and the pilots out from the wreckage. But more than 100 people are still trapped in the twisted fuselage. Rescuers, such as lead firefighter Ian Beard and the Airport Fire Brigade, are faced with a series of complex problems.
The bank was at something like 45 degrees and the aircraft was perched very precariously in that position. Aviation fuel was leaking from one point or another from the aircraft all through.
The firefighters begin to blast the fuselage and surrounding debris with fire retardant foam. Deep inside the shattered jet, passenger Noel Crimble begins to regain consciousness.
I had no idea what was happening, what was wrong. I knew I was alive, and that time I began to realise how serious the situation was, that the whole plane had broke up.
Then Noel remembers the frightened woman sitting next to him during the flight.
I had reached over and touched her, and no response. unfortunately she was killed in the crash. She didn't make it.
A shaken Noel must now focus on his own survival. He locates a nearby exit door.
I grabbed the wood of the hatch, turned it, opened it, and threw it out.
Outside, rescuers spot the opening. Now they have access to one of the main cabin areas. But the twisted wreckage is dangerously unstable.
The floor had collapsed in places into the cargo hold beneath it, and finding our way around the inside of the aircraft was extremely difficult. It was mainly down to a matter of bare hands and small equipment used to get the people out.
The rescue crews carefully pull Noel out of the wreckage. Forming a human chain, they hand him down the steep embankment. A fleet of ambulances are ready to transport survivors. Thousands of rescue workers and civilians continue to work into the night. Daylight reveals the extent of the damage. 47 passengers have lost their lives in the crash. Officials from Britain's Air Accident Investigation Branch have already arrived to analyze the crash site and transport the aircraft parts. The investigation revealed that a failed fan blade lodged in the left engine caused a fire to ignite shortly after takeoff. When the pilot detected a fire, he ordered the right engine to be shut down, but it was the left engine that was on fire. The director of the Cranfield Aviation Center, Frank Taylor, has worked to better understand how the flight crew could have made such a fatal error.
Well, the instruments in the cockpit of that aircraft were comparatively new type. The fact that the crew had not perhaps had a great deal of training in that cockpit using that set of instruments could be considered a contributory factor. By the time the crew realised that they had shut down the wrong engine, it was too late. They tried to restart the good engine, but there wasn't time. In the circumstances, they did everything that was possible.
Taylor believes that the interior cabin structure added to the fatalities after the initial impact.
Many of the seats went down through the floor, or they came off the floor till they piled up.
Today, Taylor and his colleagues are working to design seats which will minimize injury on impact.
Many of us have been trying to get better testing methods for the whole of the cabin interior. The survival aspects and cabin safety is very important.
The Cranfield team is also testing external television cameras attached to the airliner that would keep engines visible to pilots at all times. The survivors of the Midland air crash are still trying to put the catastrophe behind them.
The thoughts of just why some people were dead and some people were alive still haunts me today. I had lots of help. I was very much reassured by the goodness and human nature.
Aviation experts and safety engineers know unfortunate accidents like the crash of Flight 92 can and will occur. But with a better understanding of the tragedies of the past, they hope to gain the knowledge necessary to provide a safer future for air travel.